Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from the CUNY TV Foundation, Capital One Bank, Genova Burns, Gian Tomasi and Webster, New York Community Bank, the Witkoff Group, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Greenberg Traurig, LLP, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Colliers International NYC, Cushman and Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Eastern Union Funding, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors LLC, Herrick Feinstein LLP, Hersha Hospitality Trust, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides Centurion Holdings, Margolin Weiner and Evans LLP, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, New Banks, People's United Bank, RBS Citizens Bank, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Continuum Company, LLC, and these friends.
It's Harlem. Everybody wants to be in Harlem. They want to live. They want to shop. They want to visit. They want to go to hotels. They want to eat at the restaurants. They want to be there. So what's happening in Harlem? I had to bring together a group of individuals who are very involved with what's happening with Harlem, and as well as the man who's making the loans to give away the money in Harlem. My guest today includes Bruce Eichner, who is the chairman and CEO of the Continuum Company, LLC. Ed Blumenfeld, who is the chairman and CEO and founder of Blumenfeld Development. Jerry Salama, who is the principal of Janus Property. And as I said, the man who has the money, the man who's lending on these properties because he believes in the market, John Adams, who is the first senior vice president and chief administrative lending officer for New York Community Bank. So Bruce, now you've been in Brooklyn, you've been in Manhattan, you've been in Las Vegas, South Beach, Harlem. How did that happen?
It's still on the island of Manhattan, Michael.
Okay, but you've been in Times Square, you've been a visionary, you know, in City Spire, the Bertelsmann. Were you allowed to take a passport to go north of 96th Street? Why today do you like Harlem?
First of all, fortunately, it didn't require a passport. Manhattan's still an island. An opportunity to develop a 37,000 square foot footprint, which by any standards is a large footprint, on the corner of 125th Street and Park Avenue, stone's throw from Metro North, when there has been no 80-20 building built in the history of the city of New York north of 112th Street. It's just a great neighborhood and growing.
You want to follow him? You see, this guy went to Harlem a number of years ago, and he realizes, you know, from a wire company, it takes a little while to take a property, you know, and he took this wire company and he built this magnificent thing called East River Plaza. But besides East River Plaza, you know, which is home of Costco, Marshalls, Target, Aldi, Bob's Furniture, Burlington Coat, and the pet guy downstairs, Petco. And a little vacant space that I know you'll rent. And then you have the Applebee's right next door.
Correct.
You were on 125th Street even before people were developing. You were there right after the Pathmark. Tell me about that and what you're planning to do there now.
Well, we started there because we came from the boondocks, the hinterlands, where you do need a passport out on Long Island, and to come onto the island of Manhattan and compete with
Yeah,
the
but
lights.
you didn't have crickets. You remember when we did the shows?
I
on Long
understand we
Island?
didn't have
You had
crickets
and
and
the crickets would
turtles,
fight. Right.
but we didn't have. We were coming into Manhattan to fight the icons of New York, the real estate industry. So we went up to Harlem, which was almost like a suburb. I had gone there as a kid to the Cotton Club, but we started
See,
there.
that's near Jerry's properties. We'll get to him in
I
a second.
understand that.
But
We built an office building, and with a vacant piece of land, we kept the vacant piece, which is a parking lot on 126th Street, with the intention that someday we would build it. And today is someday. We're going to develop a residential tower,
Now, that'll be-
26,000 square foot floor plate.
will that be a rental?
It will be a rental.
Now, that's also convenient to Bruce's location because it's like 3 blocks away.
Correct.
It's right off 3rd Avenue,
Yes.
your location.
We're right on the subway, yeah.
You're right on the subway over there, and Bruce has Metro North and the subway being over there. Now we go to the other side, which is, where you said when you were younger that you went to the Cotton Club. There was something called Tasty Bakery, where Columbia's building, where you have the barbecue place, the Dinosaur Barbecue, and Fairway, West Harlem.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. I mean, that's been a hidden gem, and now with the Columbia changes, what's going on there?
It's a very exciting crossroads. We have Columbia University, as you said, expanding this 17-acre campus. City College, just to the north of us, expanding all their research and technology. And the whole arts and culture corridor, 125th Street, the Red Rooster restaurants, the Minton's Playhouse, all the excitements come back with restaurants and clubs. We have worked with the community now to rezone that whole area to be mixed use, and we're building an economic development center. We have 200,000 square feet already developed on the north side of 126th and 127th, and Tasty was offered by the city in a competition, and we were fortunate with Monadnock Construction, our partner, to win that competition.
Now, you're taking the site, are you rebuilding the Tasty?
We're demolishing and building all new Class A office with community facility, ground floor retail, and really trying to bring the amenities and features of a downtown office building uptown.
So here's the interesting thing. Before Bruce took over the site,
Yes.
there were thoughts to put an office building on 125th Street at 1800 Park Avenue. There are a limited number of office buildings in Harlem. But the office buildings in Harlem, which 2 of them are owned by Cogswell and the City Investment Fund, they're leased. They're fully leased. Even at one time, Clinton had an office over there. And then Ratner, your partner in the other building, has an office building. There hasn't been the amount of development of office buildings. Why in Harlem?
I think we finally have a concentration in West Harlem by virtue of what Columbia and City College are doing to create enough companies to come there. The last 2 leases we signed are a combination of a biotech incubator on one side coming out of Columbia University, and another one which is the Urban Electric Project coming out of City College, a group of professors who created a for-profit development company. So there are all the spin-offs in the creative and the media and technology and biotech that want to be near the universities, that want to be one stop, as Bruce said, we're on the island of Manhattan, one stop to Midtown.
Sometimes properties are looked as low-cost alternatives. People went to Brooklyn. You remember that your first sites were in Brooklyn. And Metro Tech was a space where you'd go, you can get a $25 rent. What's the differential in office space in Manhattan, in Midtown Manhattan or Lower Manhattan to what you're charging for office space?
We're finding that we can now provide new construction, Class A, with all the amenities that a downtown luxury commercial building would have for a little bit more than half of what it costs downtown.
So what for my...
So for the $100 rent that might be downtown that's going on in Astor Place and in Bryant Park, ours are in the high 40s for the same quality of office building, brand new construction, 30-foot column widths, 14-foot ceilings.
Is that due to the fact that your acquisition cost for the land is less?
It's a combination of the lower acquisition costs. We've been fortunate to have a grant from the New York State Empire State Development Corporation that wants to create jobs in this community that really are making this going to be successful because of that.
Now, the interesting thing is, we talk about jobs, and a lot of jobs were created by East River Plaza.
Correct.
I mean, jobs were created, and companies who relocated there had what we call was the REAP benefits. But now they've expired over here, which is terrible because that's what allowed people to relocate. Do you think the REAP benefits might be reinstituted?
I very much hope so. I think it's an important benefit to equalize and convince companies that to get started, that some of them, as you said, thought they needed a passport. And we've found over the years, as more and more prospective tenants have come in and signed up, that they like the community, they're interested in it, and the economics of attracting the company would be better if the REAP were extended.
Mr. Banker, you have been active throughout the city, but you've been really active in Harlem in a variety of areas, okay? You've been one of the leading lenders in the multifamily, and Harlem has had a lot of multifamily over the years. A lot of it, older properties, as T-Rex would say, going back, that were built 70, 80 years ago. And, you had the vision of financing, the site, which was the 3 Kimco stores, properties over there. Talk to me about how you as a banker look at the opportunities in Harlem to lend, both for multifamily, for retail, and even perhaps for Jerry and his office later on.
Well, obviously, take you back a little bit, back in the late 80s, banks, for the most part, such as where I came from, between the 30s and the 80s in Manhattan, that was all you would lend, if you were going to lend in Manhattan at all. Beyond north of 80th Street, they didn't want to hear anything about it. That has branched, obviously, out both north and south. We feel that the area now has become much more stable. There's plenty of good owners and sponsors who have entered that market, have done a wonderful job in acquiring properties, turning them around. The population is growing. It's a more diversified population with higher paying jobs. There's still a lot of upside there, and our business model has always been on the multifamily side to find those properties that have good management, good sponsorship, where there's still upside. And there's still plenty of that to be had in the Harlem market.
But that's the multifamily. But what happened is, there was another bank, a good friend of mine, who did the construction loan, on the site that you have right now, Social Security, Joe's Crab House, DSW Shoes, Blink, and Party City, and NYCB came into the situation and saw the vision that this was great retail a block away from Harlem, USA.
Well, what's going on 125th Street, I don't think is going to reverse back. I mean, based on the population that's now in the area, again, higher paying jobs, people need to shop. I don't see, even in a recession where you're going to lose many, if not any, of these tenants of quality that are in there today. Even if there is a slight rent adjustment, I don't think it'll be enough to make a major impact. I think these players are here to stay. For us, it's a good, sound investment. It was a good piece of real estate with good sponsorship. It was a home run.
When you built the motor vehicle site on 125th Street, which was at the beginning of the renaissance of 125th Street, let's say, how difficult was it for you to get a bank to finance that?
At that time, it wasn't. I think it was done on relationships. And when we actually went for our financing, we were pretty well leased. I would say at that time we were probably 70% pre-leased. And we had DMV, and we had the second floor, which is a 33,000-foot tenant, a not-for-profit, but a viable tenant. And we had some of the retail space leased.
Now, we were talking before, besides the fact that you're going to be building on 125th Street, that you're going to be building on top of the East River Plaza. Tell me about that.
Well, we provided when we built it that eventually we thought there is a residential component to it. We've acquired some additional sites on 119th, 118th Street for an expansion and staging, and we put in the infrastructure within the retail component to go up.
So how tall do you think you can build on top of that?
We're assessing that now. We're interviewing architects. We're fairly well down the road with Enrique Norton, and somewhere in unit-wise, I can't tell you, but in FAR, somewhere in excess of 800,000 feet.
So with the 800,000, is that a 40-story building, 50-story building?
From ground level or from where you start?
From
Remember,
where you
we're 100 and
You're 100 feet now.
118 feet in the air now.
So probably another 40 feet,
Right.
40, 50 feet. Bruce, who do you see as your, okay, you're going to have residential upstairs. Who do you see as your retail component? Or, you know, originally this site was approved for a Marriott hotel, which every person said is not going to work. You remember, Jerry, this was a game over there. Because the only new hotel that opened was the Indigo a number of years ago, which the developer and the hotel went into financial difficulties. Did you ever think of keeping a hotel comp, a portion of this as a hotel or maybe as an office?
No. When you pay a market price for a property, whether the property's on 125th Street and Park Avenue, or if it's on 61st Street and Park Avenue, you need to adjust the pro forma to reflect the realities of the economics of what your deal looks like. What's interesting about this property, besides its size and its scale, first of all, it lends itself to being built in two phases. There are a number of projects in New York that are being built of 600, 700, 800 units that are built as single-phase projects. We chose to build this in two phases, in large measure because there really are no comps for an 80-20 luxury rental building in north of 110th Street. But what the property does have, which is a really interesting offset to its acquisition price, is it's basically got 3 levels of retail. It's got a grade level of retail for which there are multiple potential tenants, whether they're banks, whether they're CVS type tenants. But what's interesting is that the community board did an analysis of the types of retail that it would like to see in the community that are largely underrepresented. So the 3rd floor of the property has space for approximately 22,000 square feet of a gym. There seems to be quite a demand for gym space. And when you start talking about 3rd level retail and you start talking about 2nd level retail and you're talking about rents that start with a 3 or maybe a low 4, the opportunity for that type of tenant who needs a footprint but can't afford ground floor space are multiple. We also have an ability to go down at least 8,000 or 10,000 feet in the basement. So I think our strategy is to identify 3 or 4 users, such as a food store, such as a fitness store, as well as the usual panoply of likely users, and build that as part of our economic development plan.
Jerry, do you see, you know, West Harlem, as we said, Columbia City College, and so on, and also Harlem, USA over there, and extra, plus more of the gentrification which happened over the last 10 years, you know, with the Tau prop properties and so on. Do you see the possibility of another hotel being built in West Harlem?
There is a hotel now that was developed about 3 years ago called Aloft.
Right, that's what I meant. I
Yes,
called it the Indigo, the
and
Aloft.
so, and apparently their occupancies are very high. I don't track the hotel world,
Right.
but there is a common, with Columbia especially, visiting professors, conferences, et cetera, there is certainly a basis for a
Right,
hotel.
which was the original story when Caridi took the Marriott, but you know that was going to be a 400-room Marriott. The Aloft is about 140
Smaller, yeah.
rooms, and they have condominiums. The question is, and this relates, you as a banker, you like rentals. How would you look that, let's say Bruce decided to do, which is, it's happening in downtown Brooklyn, the Stall estate took a building where they're putting a 80-20 and they put luxury condominiums on top. How do you look at, for anyone over here, because you could do it perhaps even in your building or anyone else, do you think that there is a market in East, West, and South Central Harlem for condominiums, both as a banker and as a developer?
I think there is a market, but I think it's all price driven. You're not going to get the same prices as you are in downtown or midtown. But yeah, you'll find buyers as long as it's priced right.
How do you as a bank look at the condo market today in general?
For a new project, we're very select on development loans. But if we were to look at doing a construction loan on a new condominium project, the rule of thumb for us has always been it has to work as a rental. So if you're looking at rent, at high-end condos where the rents are, in order to carry it, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a month, we're going to take a harder look at that. But if you're looking at a rental fallback, even in a market that's still emerging, such as Harlem, and you're looking at $2,500, $3,000 a month rents, that's more acceptable to us.
It's interesting, and you've seen this, Ed. A lot of people before the last recession were building spot building, and you see this, Jerry, around Harlem. There were guys who were, I'm going to be a developer. I'm going to build a 20-unit, and they built a sliver over there. And then when 2008 came, they went bankrupt and the properties changed. And there's still those things, right, on First Avenue and other parts, right, in Harlem.
Unfortunately, I lived through a few of those cycles where the sons of dentists, doctors, lawyers, whatever, if you could do it, my son can do it. And they all went into the real estate business, and they came out and they were building condo jobs in Harlem, rental jobs all over.
Right, but there were a preponderance in Harlem, okay? There were enormous amount of these 10 units, 20 units on Lexington Avenue, First Avenue, in between blocks and so on.
It was because, and the reason for that is because it was an easy entry-level acquisition. You couldn't go to the east side of New York or down to Soho, the meatpacking district. You could go up to Harlem and offer.
But you know what? You bring up easy entry, and this is a very interesting point. When you did East River Plaza, there wasn't that type of big box retail. How hard was it to get people like Target and Costco? I mean, originally you had Home Depot there, and they moved away from that. How hard was it to get Marshall, Target, and these companies to make a commitment? Because this was unproven territory.
As you'll recall, the original commitment was Home Depot, and it was a process. Unfortunately, we were tied up for many years with the state administration, who thought they were going to expedite local zoning and get us approvals, and we wasted, unfortunately, a lot of time with that. But once we showed the demographics to Costco and to Depot and took them up there, albeit with some security, they bought into it. And then it was just a matter of executing the plan. When we started on 125th Street, Pathmark was built, residential rents were $25, $27 a foot. I mean, that's what apartments were renting for today. And today, I think we're looking at on
probably 50.
54 if you look at 119th Street and 3rd Avenue,
right.
That new building that's going up. I understand that, I think it's Muss, is getting 54, 56.
Yeah, they're up to 54, 56 now.
So
I know you're happy, Bruce.
If you look at, if we look down the road 2015, is it going to be $60? I don't know. That's going to depend on the city and the administration. But as Jerry said, $50 a foot, $54 a foot on 125th Street isn't $90 a foot, which is what they're getting
right.
down in
and if you look at it in just a variety of circumstances, from where you are for office tenants, it's a quick hop on the subway. You have a couple of subway lines. For you, you have you have Metro North and the subway a block away over there. And yours, you know, you have the subway on both sides, you know.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, I mean, whilst there are no comps because no one's built a building on the corner of 125th Street and Park Avenue till now, there really are comps. In downtown Brooklyn, there are God knows how many units that have been built and leased, and God knows how many more under construction, where the rents are all 60, 62 bucks a foot, and the travel distance is the same exact travel distance from there as it would be to Midtown. The same thing's true, which is why you've built a Long Island City market. You can go all over Long Island City, and you're looking at $58 to $62 a foot. And the truth of the matter is that, no disrespect to Long Island City, it certainly isn't the neighborhood that
No, I think
that exists.
I think what
in
Jerry
Harlem.
brought up before, you know, with regard to the restaurants, with regard to the retail, the negative on Long Island City is it's a great commute in, but they don't have the infrastructure with regard to the retail or to the food or to the other situation. But if you want a 7-minute train ride, like I know New York Community Bank recently financed the property on 31st Street over there, you know, I took the train out there. It took me 5 minutes from 57th Street. So that's the convenience. And I think the real key why Harlem, besides the fact that Manhattan is an island and there's limited amount of space, anything that has the closeness to a transit development hub, which Harlem has, really has the key. Okay, that's what makes it. You know, people can go to East River Plaza, they can take their car, but besides taking their car, they can take the bus. And you know, they can take the bus. And what's the greatest thing about East River Plaza, and it's not a pitch for him besides the fact that he's a friend, people go up there and they have all these livery cars. And now that the fact that, you know, Bloomberg administration has passed this, the car service is from 116th Street, which helps your lending when you're providing financing because it's creating more. Before you couldn't get a taxi cab over there. I remember when I used to go up to the banks, if I didn't find day-night car service, I was dead.
You know, I think there's another thing that's interesting, which is there are an awful lot of people who grew up in Harlem and who work in Manhattan and who would like to live in the Harlem community. The problem is that other than some condominium developments that occurred, that there's really no first-class housing that's available in Harlem. And not only is there no first-class housing, the type of housing that you find all over Manhattan, there are dozens of 80-20 buildings that have been built south of 110th Street. They have amenity packages. I mean, the project on 125th Street, interestingly enough, because it was originally going to be an office building, it's actually got a 320-foot height limit. The implication of that is you look directly at Central Park.
I wish that, you know, I had more time, but you can't talk enough in Harlem on 26.5 minutes. So I do promise that later on in the season, you'll come in from Long Island.
Don't you have a to be continued?
No. Sometimes we used to have the to be continued, but I have another show afterwards. But I'd like to thank Bruce Eichner, Ed Blumenfeld, Jerry Salama, and John Adams, and I'll see you next week.